If God does not exist, only molecules exist, what is the nature of the moral standard called goodness, and why are we obligated to obey it? What is that little ruler if it's not God's nature?
Okay, back to where I started. Frank, can you think of any reason why sexually molesting a child is bad?
I can think of reasons, but they're all based on moral principles which require God.
No, they don't.
Sure they do.
No, really. Do you really need God to tell you and explain to you why it's wrong to molest a child?
No, not to tell me why it's wrong, but you don't need God to know right and wrong. You don't need God to be good. You just need God to justify what good is.
No. Right there. Stop right there and leave out the God part. I know why it's wrong. Full stop.
You know why it's wrong, but why is it wrong independent of you knowing it?
So Plato refuted this 2.5 millennia ago. It's called the Euthyphro problem, or the Euthyphro dilemma. That is, if God says, say, murder is wrong, although technically by definition that's what murder means, wrongful killing. But in any case, are there reasons why God is saying that? Yes, God has his reasons. Okay, give us the reasons.
Made in the image of God.
And skip the middleman. All we need are the reasons why.
But see, that implies a moral principle. When you, like before you said, the reason you shouldn't sexually molest a child is because they're sentient beings and you wouldn't want them doing it to you or vice versa or whatever. Those are all other moral principles that need a source. What is the source on atheism?
The source
what is the standard?
Leave atheism out of it. Atheism isn't anything. It's just lack of belief in God, full stop. We could talk about civil rights, civil liberties, the rule of law.
Where do rights come
conventions.
from?
I think rights come from, the basis of it is human nature and what all of us want. Now, I think we're born with an inherent, innate sense of right and wrong. We know from research, like in Paul Bloom's lab at Yale, for example, with tiny infants. These are like 6 months to a year old babies. And they are shown a little puppet show. So imagine there's this ramp, and this puppet's pushing this ball up the ramp, and one puppet comes up and bashes the ball back down and is fighting the puppet. And then,
Michael,
let me finish. This is a great experiment.
Okay.
I'm making an argument for
I'm not disagreeing that we all know right from wrong. That's not my point. My point is not epistemology. How do you know right from wrong? My point is, what is rightness on an atheistic, materialistic worldview?
On a humanist worldview, right and wrong is determined by a combination of our innate moral sense, our upbringing, what our parents teach us, our family, our social communities, and so on, which, by the way, have changed a lot. You guys would have been in favor of burning witches and enslaving blacks centuries ago. You don't believe that anymore. Maybe 50 years ago, most of you would have voted, probably about 90% would have voted that blacks and whites getting married should be illegal. It's not God's plan. God separated the races by continents. These were arguments made in the 20th century.
Okay,
Nobody here would argue that today.
Michael, your book...
Gay marriage. Most of you are probably against this. I contend probably half of you tonight are already in favor of it, or at least let it happen. In 10 years, we won't even be talking about gay marriage.
Michael, why are any of these
right
things...
right and wrong shifts over time, and it doesn't come from religion. It doesn't come from the Bible. There's no reinterpretation of when Paul said this, he really meant gays should get married. No, that's not how moral change happens. It's not happening through religion.
I'm not talking about moral change. I'm talking about the grounding of morality. If we're just molecules, well then if we do it, then who's to say Hitler was worse than Mother Teresa?
Again.
Who's to say that if there's no standard beyond either of them, how can you say Hitler was wrong?